brand. Funny or Die is a little bit different. All we want to do is make people laugh, right? And there's lots of different types of comedy out there. There's satirical political comedy that's going to be really funny for some people, and there's fart jokes, which I generally fall more in that area. But I can appreciate a good satirical comedy once in a while.
Thank you for joining us on I guess it's a typical fall Saturday in Boston, kind of dark and gloomy out, but the leaves are looking nice. I'm Keith Orlowski. I actually was a participant on this panel last year. I'll try not to move, that's hard. But I'm going to moderate this year, and it's really about the world of content, shockingly, because I'm sure that's why all of you are here on a Saturday. We're going to talk a little bit about branded content, but really about sort of the proliferation in terms of the creation and the distribution, and it's just become a very confusing world, as you can see by the title. Cord cutters, OTT, VOD, WTF. I think like we add an acronym every day in our world, right? So this should be fun. We're going to leave some time at the end for questions. And I have two, I don't know that I'd say native New Yorkers, because I know Katie has family here. Jason is definitely, and he's a Yankees fan. But don't hold it against him.
Off to a bad start with this group.
Yeah, exactly. But two folks who are sort of veterans, pioneers in the industry of branded content, and I think they're going to be great for the conversation. Katie Gowdy-Pridham is currently the head of brand partnerships at Girlboss, previously at Refinery 29. And Jason Rosenberg is the director of brand partnerships at a company called Funny or Die. I think people have probably heard of that. We couldn't get Zach Galifianakis up here, so
they stuck you with the Yankee
yeah,
fan.
so we got the Yankee fan instead. So what I'd love to do is have Katie and Jason talk a little bit more about their brands and the content associated with their brands, and then we'll dive into a few different areas, if that makes sense. So Katie, you have the honors.
Hi everyone. I'm Katie Gowdy-Pridham. I'm our head of brand partnerships at Girlboss. And for those that don't know Girlboss, Girlboss is a brand that comes to life through content, community, and experiences. And really our purpose and why we exist is to help women redefine success on their own terms. It started just about a year ago. In 2017, we launched our business, but the idea of Girlboss has a long history. In fact, in 2014, our CEO and founder, called Sophia Amoruso, wrote a book called #Girlboss. And really what this book was about was her journey and her personal journey at that of becoming an entrepreneur at 23 years old. And what are the struggles, what are the challenges, how she learned along the way. And this book actually created a movement. It created a movement that allowed women to understand that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to start something and not have it perfectly cut out or have a linear path to success. And because of this movement, it became not only a New York Times bestseller, but it became and created a community. In fact, her story was started a Netflix show called #Girlboss, which got us in the homes of 90 million globally. But why our company exists today is because there's a white space in the industry. There's a white space for women entrepreneurs, side hustlers, front hustlers that want to start their own business and just don't know how to do it. So there's incredible companies out there, Girlboss being one of them, Refinery 29 being another, that are inspiring women, that are empowering women. But once you're inspired and empowered to start your own business, for example, what next? How do you know how to build a P&L? How do you know how to write a press release? And that's where Girlboss comes in, really providing the actionable resource and the safe place for community and curiosity to come to life. So I'm so excited to be here and chatting with these two guys.
So way more than entertainment, I would say.
Way more than entertainment.
And just, we're splintering off, because that's what this is all about, right? What female filmmakers, is that an area you've gone into yet?
Yeah.
Just because I'm sure there's some in the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think yes, it's about the creators. And so it's not just about one medium or one platform. It's really about the creators that are thinking about content for women. And so female filmmakers, female influencers, or content producers are part of that. And it's really making sure that, yes, from a category Pacific, we're thinking and serving her in that way. But most importantly, we're really thinking about how do we give her the tools and resources for whatever she wants to do.
That's great. Jason.
You I am.
Hard act to follow.
Yeah, I know, jeez. So Jason Rosenberg, I'm the Director of Brand Partnerships at Funny or Die. For those of you who don't know what Funny or Die is or haven't been keeping up with us, we were launched in 2007 by some guys named Will Ferrell, Adam McKay, and Chris Henchy. It was launched with a pretty big video called The Landlord. It's probably one of the most watched viral videos of all time. And it was Will Ferrell getting yelled at by a baby landlord. And at the time, it was a pretty big deal. It was a celebrity, a tier A, you know, at the time, the most popular celebrity on the internet, which was crazy. I mean, you think about it now, it seems like you see celebrities on the internet all the time, but at the time, to be able to turn your computer on and just see Will Ferrell being funny on your computer was kind of a new thing. And since then, we've evolved into a comedy brand. So that does still include us producing and releasing really funny sketch comedy videos online, but it also means producing long-form TV shows for platforms like Netflix and Hulu and cable networks. It means producing article content for the website. It means making social content for all these different social platforms that I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit more today. Mm-hmm. And even some film, where I have a couple of films in development right now. So when we think about Funny or Die, it's really less about just being a production studio. We still are in a lot of ways, but we're a full-fledged comedy brand, and that's what I go out and talk about most of the time.
It's funny, your evolution has sort of followed the path of where the internet has sort of gone, mm-hmm. right? In terms of like entertainment, in terms of content that was produced and sort of pushed out for entertainment purposes, YouTube in the beginning for the most part, but then as everything sort of splintered out, it's become much more than that. And as digital's become a platform for films and long form and things like that, you guys have mm-hmm. rode along that sort of crest of the wave.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or maybe you created the wave. So we're going to talk a little bit about splintering of consumption. So it's actually Sir Martin Sorrell, he's a knight, who is of advertising fame. For those of you who don't know, he basically grew WPP into the largest advertising holding company in the world. He has since left. I think he's back to his entrepreneurial roots and is going to start something up in a sort of similar vein. But he recently said in a discussion that the balance between the big idea and distribution has shifted. And so I think if you think about, I'm thinking about it from an advertising standpoint, but you could think about it from a pure content creation standpoint. 10 years ago, it was about the idea and everything else followed. I think that still holds true in terms of you need to have an amazing idea, but if you don't know who your audience is or how to find them, you're in a lot of trouble, right? Because there's more, like everybody's heard, there's more content created in a single day than the average consumer can consume in a lifetime. And so there's a really interesting juxtaposition there. And I'm actually going to skip around a little bit, I know, in terms of what we were going to talk about. But this sort of talks about knowing your audience, right? And so, and takes it to a whole new level. Because if you don't know them, they're not going to find you, and they're not going to find your content. So I'd love to hear about how both of you are thinking about who your audience is. You both have such passionate audiences, very different in terms of demographics and things of that nature. But I'd love to know, A, who is your core audience? I think we can guess with you, Katie, but to elaborate a little bit more specifically on that. And then how are you ensuring that you're reaching them and that you're continuing to reach them and get to their hearts and minds and develop and cultivate new audiences?
Yeah.
That was a long-winded question.
No, that was a great question. Great job.
Well articulated.
Yeah. Jason and I were actually talking about this, and it's really easy in our industry to want to put a consumer in a bucket, right? Whether it's age, whether it's household income, whether it's demographic. And I think what we have really found with Girl Boss is because it created this movement and because it really opened this aperture for women to identify as a girl boss, we're really focused on a mindset. And so what we saw is that with the Girl Boss, we host events twice a year called the Girl Boss Rally. And what we've seen is that a 7-year-old entrepreneur who's starting her own cupcake company to a 63-year-old woman that's going through a divorce and bringing all of her quote-unquote girl bosses with her to support her are identifying as a girl boss. And so while yes, we are really thinking about female and women and entrepreneurs, there are also women that are in transitional periods of their life, whether they're having their first baby or whether they're looking to make a corporate job change or whether to leave a corporate job and say, I want to start my own business. And so it's really understanding the mindset of this consumer versus putting them in the bucket of an 18, 24-year-old. We talk about millennials, we talk about Gen Z all the time, and oftentimes we forget who this consumer is and what she really stands for or what he really stands for. And so here at Girl Boss, because we have this opportunity and first and foremost a responsibility, we really think about the mindset and understanding our consumer. And how we do that is, yes, through data. We have immense amount of data, but we consider our company as a data-informed company versus a data-driven company. And they're very two different things for a reason. You know, we look at data and we look at insights such as social likes, comments, engagement, impressions on content, video views, CTR, all of these different metrics that can be inundated of what good looks like. And we really think about, okay, at the end of the day, who is she? What does she care about? And how do we use data to inform this? And so we look at data and all of this information with empathy, because it's important that we know her just as much as the comments or the likes that she's doing, just as much as what she cares about and the tools that she needs to succeed.
That's great. I'm assuming there's a lot of passion with your particular fan base?
Yes.
Positive and negative?
Yeah.
How do you guys react to that? Like, are you looking at social commentary on a daily basis?
On a daily basis. Because we are a community, we want to learn and we want to grow with this community. In fact, we're unique in the sense that with this diversification of this content and distribution and quality versus quantity, quantity versus quality, we've grown up in a stage where we can actually learn and grow with this. So the most important thing is for us to be an active listener to our community and respond. In fact, we have comments that are asking us questions about resources. Where do I find a graphic designer in Boston? Where do I find a female filmmaker in Boston for my latest project? So we are working with her like a community, and that means responding. It's not just a one-way dialogue.
That's great. Jason, you want to elaborate on knowing your audience,
yeah,
the Funny or Die audience?
You know, Katie mentioned that we had a conversation about this beforehand, which I guess is maybe cheating. I don't really know.
No, you're supposed to.
But yeah, we had a conversation about it, and
you're supposed to say it just came to me. Like,
yeah, this is
we're
totally
on
unique,
the same page.
original thought. I'm just going to run with. But the, you know, obviously, Girl Boss and Funny or Die are very different, but not in the way that you would probably just think of. Girl Boss is targeting millennial women, and Funny or Die probably is targeting, I don't know, millennial men. And maybe there is a demographic difference in who our core audience is, but really there's a core difference in the way that we look at audiences altogether, where, you know, Katie talked about Girl Boss as it's a community. They go very, very deep with a very specific group of people that are rabid fans, right? They're going to be the people that listen to the things that you say, read the things you put out there, watch the videos you make, and they have a very, they love the brand. They're part of the brand. Funny or Die is a little bit different. All we want to do is make people laugh, right? And there's lots of different types of comedy out there. There's satirical political comedy that's going to be really funny for some people, and there's fart jokes, which I generally fall more in that area. But you know, I can appreciate a good satirical comedy once in a while. But the point is, comedy really runs the gamut. There's a huge spectrum. So for us, our conversations with brand partners specifically and how we look at our audience isn't necessarily, okay, I have, you know, a reach of 40 million people, here's who they are. It's, tell me who you're trying to reach. You know, what's your target audience look like? And then it's my job, my creative team's job more specifically, to come up with an idea that's gonna help get that person to engage. So if you're trying to reach a millennial woman, then maybe we'll choose talent that's gonna resonate with that audience. Maybe we're gonna choose a subject or a sketch theme that's gonna tackle or resonate with that particular audience. And that's really where the brand and the agency come into play, is helping us understand those insights so that when we put our funny ideas together, you know, they're tailor-made to that particular audience.
It's the right funny.
That's right.
Not fart jokes.
Well, it depends. We'll make fart jokes if you want.
Right. I
Just
think we've asked you to do that before. So just to sort of put a pin on in this portion of the conversation. So we've talked about who your audiences are. We've talked about how you stay true to them. It's really hard to reach them, right? Because all the acronyms that we talked about, there's such this sort of splinter and proliferation of content. You know, people will watch some stuff on their phones. They're on their phones while they're multitasking while they're watching their TV sets. Most millennials don't have a TV set. If they do, they're programming YouTube through it. They're not watching cable. There's obviously what we call SVOD, which is subscription video on demand. So basically Netflix or Hulu. We always try to sound fancy, but it's really those two things, amongst others. There's social media. There's so many ways to get your content, right? And I would say the one truism that comes with that is people can avoid what they want to avoid, right, for the most part. Commercials, as we used to call them, no longer really exist in their oldest, truest form. There were 4 stations 30 years ago or whatever it was, and you sat there and you watched the 2 minutes of commercials when the show came back on. That doesn't exist anymore. People can avoid that through ad blocking software. They can go to a Netflix where there's no such thing as a commercial. So you guys represent brands. You work with other brands. Mm-hmm. How do you think about that? Like, how do you think about, from a distribution standpoint, that people can avoid you? Do you think, like, are you thinking about certain channels in certain ways? Do you have a sort of blanket approach to when you're producing content on behalf of Girl Boss or Funny or Die? How does that process work?
Yeah. For us at Girl Boss, we have to take a holistic approach to our consumer. We have to be filling a hole for her. We have to be providing a service to her. So whether that's through Instagram stories, through Facebook, through LinkedIn, through .com content to podcast, we have to be thinking about her first, which goes back to really understanding your audience and understanding the qual and quant about her and really figuring out kind of what drives her, what motivates her, what engages her. And then taking that one step further, of course there's different channels in which levers we pull or we invest in or we prioritize for that reason. Audio and podcast is one of them. We know about our audience is that with the Girl Boss Radio Network, it's highly successful. In fact, iTunes is coming in and asking us, being like, can you guys build more shows? Because it really works. Mm-hmm. And why it works is because this female, this woman, this girl boss is listening to audio on her maybe way to work, on her way or getting ready for work while she's putting on makeup. She wants to feel empowered and educated before her day starts. And so this idea of productivity is not just a theme, but it's a platform. So we think about the channels that can do that, whether it's snackable content through social, through .com, or it's long form, where we're actually creating, resourceful guides, where it's how to start your own business, how to get your business online. So it's really, yes, it's understanding the platform. You have to understand the platform to understand how it can perform, but it's most importantly understanding your audience and the holistic view of what she cares about or what they care about, so you can motivate and engage them accordingly.
And then take what those particular platforms do really well and dial that up based on your audience.
Yeah. And experiential is one of them too. Mm-hmm. I think that's one that we don't talk about a lot, but think about the content that is happening throughout the day today, whether it's podcast series, whether it's our conversation here, this is content. And so the way and the definition of content or even distribution of content is changing.
Yeah, if you can help me with that, because I get clients and even people at our agency that are like, what is content? I'm like, it's everything, I guess. Yeah. It sort of sits over everything.
It's true.
How are you staying true to your audience in terms of, or thinking about the content that you create, whether it's platform specific or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, obviously. Yeah. But I think for us, understanding the different platforms and the audiences on that platform, more importantly, how they want to be engaged. I think you mentioned it's hard to reach people. It's actually really easy to reach people, but it's hard to get them to actually pay attention. Like, I can put anything in a news feed if I want to pay Facebook to put it there.
Yep. We should switch seats. That was more well said. That was well said.
Listen, I had the benefit of taking a lot of time to think about it. But what we want to do isn't just reach people. We're not trying to interrupt an experience. We're trying to create something that provides value. Your value is providing helpful tips on things that the Girl Boss wants to do. Our value is we just want to make you laugh, right? Maybe a little less, important.
Can we do both?
Yeah, we can absolutely do both.
We could try to do both.
Let's do a Funny or Die Girl Boss partnership.
Let's do it.
This is why we're here. But yeah, I mean, understanding how those different platforms work is super important. A 3-minute sketch video might work extremely well on funnyordie.com. Someone might come in and want to sit back and watch that. That same 3 to 5 minute sketch video is not going to work on Instagram. Right. That audience is swiping through and they want something that's going to give them instant gratification. So when we come up with ideas for partners, we're trying to think about how can we tell this story on all these different platforms? Maybe there's a short standalone clip from that 3 to 5 minute video that's gonna work really well on Instagram. Maybe there's a behind the scenes video. Maybe there's a GIF or a meme that we can cut from it. But yeah, it still stays true to the theme that we're making, but tailoring it to those different platforms is super important.
It's become somewhat complicated, hasn't it?
Yeah.
All right, let's talk a little bit about collaboration. So we've talked a lot about this ever more demanding world in terms of people just out there ready to consume content 24/7, 365. Jason, I would imagine that when Funny or Die started, with the few guys, I forget their names, who started it, there was probably, they thought up some stuff in a room, they produced that content, they put it out to the internet or the world, and people went and watched it.
Yep.
We've talked a lot about the way you guys collaborate now with talent, and how that's changed a little bit. And I think it's really interesting. I think part of it is sort of the times that we're in. I think part of it is there's not as much of a willingness to invest so heavily up front on a lot of, on certain things. I'd love to talk about, I think it's your studio model, or the way that you guys are thinking about when you partner with talent, how that process is working.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the economics have changed so much. You said we used to be able to make a video. We could spend a little money up front, make a funny video, put it on Funny or Die, and we would sell banners around it. You know, maybe some pre-roll against it, and we would make our money back. And if we were lucky and it got a lot more people there, we'd even make some money on it. And that model doesn't really exist anymore. So we need to really think about what we're investing in, how we're making content, what we're making, how often we're making it, and it really forced us to look at who we are as a company and what our value proposition is to our audience and also to our advertising partners. And where we kind of netted out is we're really great at finding talent. And talent can be celebrities, it could be comedians, you know, people that you see on TV and in movies. But it can also be really talented writers, producers, directors. You know, we've been in Hollywood now for over 10 years. So over the years, we've developed those relationships. And those people have ideas and they want to get their ideas made. And 10 years ago, those people would not have wanted, in most cases, a brand to be involved in it. It would cloud their vision, it would be selling out, whatever the case is. But the evolution of our industry has actually changed those dynamics and really turned them on their head. Now, we actually have people coming to us, celebrities, writers, producers, directors, saying, hey, here's my idea, and I want to work with a brand to make sure that it comes to life. And even some people come to us, here's a list of brands or categories that I would like to work with that I think could be additive to this piece of content. So my job really is to find those ideas and find those brand partners and bring them together so that we can make really funny branded content that's also entertaining, you know, that doesn't necessarily have to shout at people or feel like you're sitting down watching a commercial.
Has it made it easier for you to sell things to brands as a result of this? So now you've got, I know we're going to watch a video in a minute, where you worked with a certain talent and it was like this, there are only a few brands that this is going to work with organically or sort of natively. Is that helping you with brands or is it still a struggle?
Well, it's never easy to do big projects like this, right? There's a lot of different elements that are always at play. I think it's helping us have a lot of really good constructive conversations, and I think the times that we are able to sell them through and actually make them, the proof is in the actual content itself. I think some of the best content we've done has come from this model. But you know, without going too in detail on the advertising side of the world, like the traditional model is not quite caught up with how this new branded content world is coming around. So it's still a struggle, but I think things are coming together.
Katie, like, you agree with that?
Yeah.
What's the reason for that? I have my own thoughts, but like why is it still, why are brands still haven't come around? I totally agree with that too. They have not come around. It's still, it's crazy how many banners are still out there and how much, look, TV commercials work and there's still a medium, that's still a medium that works, but that's still sort of like the fail-safe in some instances. Why do you think brands have not come around per se to branded content?
You know, I think co-creation takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of internal resources, it takes a lot of approvals, it takes a lot of investment, time, money, and I think the output to what Jason is saying is so much far superior. You know, when you do great content and you do co-creation where it brings value from two brands together back to consumer, that's, you know, where you can see massive success versus a banner ad, a print page, you know, traditional media beyond just an impression or a CPM. It's really about, okay, did I actually shift a mindset? Did I shift a sentiment? Did I make them think differently about my brand? Did I connect with them in a deeper level that makes it, you know, just, oh, I saw that commercial, or yes, I just flipped through that print page. And so I think the challenge that brands are at right now is that they know that the success is there, but we're still on this journey to say it's worth it because of the time, because of the resources, because of the scale it takes and is required to do incredible work.
Right, so it costs a little bit more time and energy up front. And then I think to your point on the measurement piece, which has become such a, it's a stickler, because that's how people are judged, right?
Absolutely.
Well, on the sale of products, but also on how something performs. And it's so much easier to look at click-through rate or impressions or engagement, whatever it might be, than it is to say, did that piece of content impact a potential consumer or a current consumer in a certain way? And I feel like we haven't nailed, like, yeah, you do control exposed brand studies, but like, do those really?
That are based off of almost ad, you know, ad media. So does it actually serve that measurement purpose?
We won't get too geeky on this. I know we're all passionate about it. But yeah, I think it's interesting that, it, you know, I feel like we just haven't come around to it yet. I'm confident we will, though. Let's, you want to watch Cooking with Jeff, which is a great showcase of you guys collaborating with talent, writers, but also on-screen talent, coming up with an idea and then saying, oh, you know what, this really makes sense for, which client was it?
This was Kroger, grocery store chains, and it was for the specific retail outlet is Ralph's, which is a grocery store on the West Coast.
And this is not something they'd ever done before, right?
No, this was, I mean, branded content in general, I think this was, if it wasn't the first, it was one of the first times that they've done it, but certainly something as grandiose as this is, was definitely, I give them credit, like, you know, it's not easy. We talked a commitment to doing this stuff and stepping outside your comfort zone, but they did it and it paid off in a big way. This is one of my favorites.
Great. Can we cue that one? Oh, there's two of them, but.
Yeah, these are just clips.
Tell me about that manchego cheese.
It comes out of Spain. It's actually mentioned in Don Quixote. That old of a recipe.
Sing with me. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable thought. Did you see School of Rock?
I did.
Sing that song with me. Ready? You're not hardcore unless you live hardcore, but the legend of the Rand was way hardcore. It was very good. I liked your lip syncing to me.
We could.
Much of the explored world happened because people were looking for spices. You'd risk the lives of generations of sailors because our food is too bland. Is that what happened? Maybe I'm foggy about history, but I could be. I could be. Look at that. Look at that. It's the Turkish bay leaf, woodsy and fragrant. That's the name of my two sons. True or false? There's woodsy, fragrant. Yeah, time for dinner. Woodsy, get your hat. Quit hitting fragrant. True or false? No, it's false.
It's great.
Yeah.
So great.
No brainer for Kroger.
Yeah, I mean, it worked really well, and the whole thing about it is, like, it's funny, we're all watching, it's laughing, it's fun to watch Jeff Goldblum do just about anything. But there's a message in there, like, you know, Kroger wanted to make sure that, you know, people were able to see how beautiful their grocery stores were. They wanted people to see how helpful and kind the staff was. You know, we didn't see it in one of these clips, but one of the videos we made was about promoting their app to help people shop. So Jeff was using the app in parts of the videos as well. So
Awkwardly.
well, I mean, that's the way that he does it. If he doesn't do it awkwardly, it's not Jeff Goldblum.
I thought the funniest, not the funniest, that stuff's really funny, but when he cooks, it might be more evident, but like he has no experience in the kitchen.
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah.
You were telling me?
Yeah, that's kind of the whole joke about it, is the idea is, you know, what we saw was Jeff in the Ralph's grocery store, but the story, it's actually two 10-minute videos. And the last, I would say, 3 to 4 minutes is Jeff in the kitchen with a guest star, a guest host, cooking. And Jeff has never cooked anything in his life, I don't think. Like, he just doesn't know how to cook. So that's kind of the funny part about it, is you think you're watching a traditional cooking show. Turns out Jeff really doesn't know what he's doing. So.
All right, that's enough fun. Okay, so let's talk about a brand's role in the world of content. We've tiptoed, or maybe not tiptoed, maybe we've loudly stepped around this. We talked about consumers' attitudes towards advertising have changed. They can ignore it, they can bypass it. Some brands have taken the stance that they should be acting as publishers.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
I think, Girl Boss is a brand. We're not a publisher, nor are we a traditional media company. And how we serve this community is through content and through quote unquote publishing. And I think brands have an opportunity to connect with this consumer beyond just their product, beyond just a service, beyond just a tool. And you see brands that are doing it really well think about publishing, thinking about content differently. I think an example of that is Peloton. Peloton is a brand that is providing not only technology, but an incredible tool and a resource for women and men to get fit and to have it at the, in their homes. But at the end of the day, the classes are content. They're publishing content, they're creating content, they're creating an experience. The same way with Away Luggage, that is an incredible brand that is doing amazing things in this space and kind of shifting the idea of what luggage companies and industry means today with the right price point, the right functionality, the right technology. But they're also saying, hey, in order for us to really connect with this consumer, we've got the product down, we've got the awareness down, but in order for us to build this affinity, this emotional connection, this loyalty with the consumer, they have to go deeper than a product. And so in order to do so, they're actually becoming a publishing company. They're producing a magazine called Here. And so I think that's why Girl Boss exists today too, is that we are a brand. We don't, as I mentioned, want to be a media company nor a publishing company, but the output of what we do and how we serve this community of women is actually through content and through experiences.
Which is a necessary way to reach people today.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have a Peloton?
I don't.
I know, I want
But my
one.
father-in-law does.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, and he uses it all the time.
Do you love it?
I do.
All right. I'm trying to convince my wife, but the price point is driving her away.
Yeah.
I was like, I can be closer to you when I
Better
work
than
out.
SoulCycle.
Yeah, right, I don't have to go to the gym.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you own a Peloton, Jason?
I don't own a Peloton.
What are your
shut
thoughts
down.
on brands as publishers?
Katie, you mentioned this before. It's really about providing value. I think there are some brands that absolutely can and should be a publisher. They have something to say, they have something to bring an audience, whether it's important facts about travel or just make them laugh, do something funny or entertaining. But not all brands, I think, have earned the right to do that.
Yeah.
There are some brands that are boring, right? And that's
Right.
okay. They're
Right.
commodities. They don't need, not every brand needs to be a publisher. So I think what we find sometimes is, it's kind of like a bright, shiny object right now for a lot of brands, like, oh, we need to be producing content, we need to have a social presence, and that's
Yeah.
okay. But it's not really just a box to check. It really, there needs to be
Yeah.
a strategy behind it. There needs to be a voice, and there needs to be a value exchange.
Well, and it's like publishing can take many forms. It could be for educational purposes. It could be because search demand is high, right? And somebody's searching for certain subjects, and the way that you find them is through informational content. It could be for entertainment purposes. So yeah, I think it can be chameleon-like.
And some might argue that even having a social channel is publishing.
Right.
Right. So I think it really, the lines are really blurred right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes we see brands too, like, we talked about like checking a box, like making a bunch of commercials and putting it on your YouTube channel. I guess technically that makes you a publisher, but
Yeah.
that's not really having the effect that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
We're trying to engage and bring people into the
That's
fold.
not really knowing your audience, to
That's
what we
right.
were talking about
Right.
before.
That's right.
Another popular notion that I would say has really risen over the past year or so, with Me Too and other things like that, is that brands should be taking a stand on issues that are near and dear to their hearts. So it could be from a corporate social responsibility standpoint, it could be just the brand's DNA, like Nike with Colin Kaepernick, or it could even be for operational purposes. So Nike launched their campaign starring Colin Kaepernick, very controversial, had people reacting very, very emotionally on both sides, right? There were people who said they were going to boycott Nike. They were burning all their Nike clothes and putting out viral videos on it. Then you had people who were in love with it. At the end of the day, I would say in terms of knowing your audience, Nike knows their audience pretty damn well because sales went up 31% after the Kaepernick stuff launched, even though their stock price went down and bounced back up. So anyway, you guys partner with others and obviously represent your own respective brands. What's the criteria that you guys abide by when creating content? And do you take, I think for Girl Boss, like obviously there are some things that you're going to align with because you feel very passionately about them and your audience feels very passionately about them. Do you guys, like, would you say you take a stand on certain things?
We do, and we have to. We have a responsibility to. So there's partners that we turn away, and that's, you know, interesting to say we're not working with a certain brand partner or we're actually turning away revenue. But we owe it to our consumer and we owe it to our community to work with the right brands that are, going back to what we've been talking about, and Jason, you alluded to this too, bringing value back. And so it's really, really important that we have the filter of, okay, how do two brands, one, come together to bring this enterprise value back to this community or this consumer, and two, at the end of the day, what is it going to do for both of our brands? How are we going to move forward, and how are we going to provide service or engagement to this core consumer? And I think an example of that we've done at Girl Boss is we've actually partnered with Uber. And Uber, as you can probably imagine, has had controversy, has had you know, a lot of public conversations around their commitment to women. And at the end of the day, what we really sat in a room and did some design thinking about is that Uber is a platform and a company and a technology company that provides opportunity. I take Uber almost every day in New York City, and it allows me to have conference calls. It allows me to sometimes send proposals in an Uber. It allows me to feel more efficient and productive in ways that I couldn't do on the subway. So it allows me to feel a little bit more empowered in my day-to-day. And most importantly, in some ways, Uber's also opening the doors and providing opportunity with drivers and women. They're opening the doors and saying, hey, you can have a front hustle, you can have a side hustle, you can also be an Uber driver, or you can take an Uber. And they're, as a brand, really taking a stance for opening up opportunity is something that we can get behind and something that we can help with. And so what we did is we actually launched a program and a partnership with Uber that was all for female entrepreneurs. And we gave female entrepreneurs the opportunity to get a $200,000 grant and tools and resources and mentorship with Uber and Girl Boss to start their own company.
That's awesome.
And it was amazing. In just a week, we had 260,000 downloads. And we had 7 billion press impressions. And that's the type of commitment both two brands can come together and say, we're putting our money where our mouth is and saying, we're not just for entrepreneurs, we're actually going to work with a brand to provide an opportunity for more entrepreneurs.
Jason, to the point of like, sometimes things feel disingenuous or working with certain brands doesn't work. Is there anything that comes to mind that you feel comfortable talking about where it's like,
I don't know that I want to necessarily get into specific brands, but I mean, look, I think we have our entire mission statement is just about being funny. So at its core, if you're willing to be funny, if you're willing to not take yourself too seriously, we'll have a conversation. I will say you probably will not see a Funny or Die NRA ad, right? Like there's certain places that we probably won't go, right?
That's good.
But that's, you know.
You're in a safe space in Massachusetts.
That's what I figured. But you know, in most cases, and everything's case-by-case basis, but in most cases, if you're willing to be funny, then we're willing to work with you. I think where we generally get into maybe issues is when a brand comes to us and says, yeah, we want to be funny, we're willing to, you know, make fun of ourselves, we're willing to not take ourselves too seriously, and then you quickly realize as you get into the creative process, it's actually not the case, right? And generally, that's not us walking away, that's kind of a mutual decision. It's like, okay, yeah, maybe we're not quite ready to do this type of project.
Or maybe their judgment of funny is not funny.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, fart jokes, like not everyone's into them.
Katie, you talked about experiential.
Yeah.
You guys do these amazing rallies.
Yeah.
They exemplify your brand in a lot of ways, right? I know we brought a clip. I'd love to show that just in terms of like what you guys stand for and all that.
Yeah.
Cue that up. That looks way more fun than what I do for a living. I think you invited.
I did.
Yeah.
You just didn't show.
All right. Gonna go to the next one. I would be outnumbered, but it would be fun.
Yeah, you will be.
But you guys do, we'll close this portion out, but you guys have done some amazing integrations there where
Yeah.
it feels so natural. So was it LinkedIn with the headshots?
It was actually Bumble.
It was Bumble.
Bumble and
Makes
Google.
sense.
You know, there's such an opportunity. I think, you know, what we do on digital is thinking about connecting women and building this community and building this resource and this content. But there's something that we forget a lot about in algorithms and hashtags and likes is the human connection. It's what we're all sitting here today and talking about and learning from one another, or just even networking. And that's what the Girl Boss Rally is all about. It's kind of flipping the idea of a conference upside down and creating a safe space where women can not only learn, they can be informed, they can be educated, but they can be inspired, and most importantly, they can connect with one another. And so brands really have an incredible opportunity to play a part in that. And so, you know, it's really rare to have a headshot. I know that sounds crazy, but it's really rare. When you were asking me, I was like, oh, I don't know, I really
I
like
only
this
had a
picture.
black and white one, so I look out of place in
Exactly.
the program.
And I like my black and white headshot better. But it's
yeah.
really rare to have a headshot. They're expensive unless your company pays for it. And so we had an opportunity to work with Bumble, that is a social media platform, to say we're going to provide every woman that attends the rally a professional headshot. We're going to do their makeup, we're going to style them, and they're going to walk away with not only a headshot, they're going to walk away meeting other women or other people through Bumble as well. And so there's this great intersection of value that happens from, you know, bridging the gap between IRL to URL and vice versa. And so I think experiential events play a massive role for brands to really get to know and capitalize on the human connection.
Yeah, and what I'm hearing here is like brands have permission to be in people's lives. It's just know the ways in which there's gonna be a value proposition,
Yeah.
and how you can connect best with your audience. Yeah. We're gonna talk really quickly about social, and then we'll do our lightning round, and then we're gonna do questions from the audience. So please have questions. So social media, right? Increasing microscope. When these were created, they were arguably about connecting with friends or family or accessing your favorite news stories. It's now equally associated with data breaches, with fake news, as someone likes to say. And even now we're hearing, especially from Silicon Valley parents, that they're keeping their kids away from devices and from social media because it's causing addiction. You guys have rabid social media followings, both of you. What are you doing at Girl Boss and Funny or Die to keep things positive and focused within social? Jason?
I mean, for us, I feel like I just keep saying the same thing.
It's about being funny.
It's just about being funny.
Yeah.
Like we're pretty simple at our core. You know, we'll put out ideas again that, you know, are funny to some people and other people won't like it, and we're comfortable with that. You know, we're just trying to be authentic to ourselves and just have a funny point of view on an idea, a subject, and make content that's going to make people laugh.
But you guys have stayed true to yourselves in that way. Like you've diversified as a media company in some, or production company in some ways, but you haven't gotten away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we want
a lot
to,
of companies have.
That's true. I mean, it's a delicate landscape, right? Because it's very easy, especially it's not as bad for a publisher like a Funny or Die, but certainly a brand. I mean, you give Nike a little bit of credit for doing something that's controversial, right? That's gonna push the envelope. For us, we like pushing the envelope. That's what our company was built on, is, you know, kind of challenging the status quo. So for us, it's really not a problem if people don't like it or are angry about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really bother us.
Katie, what are you guys doing within social, just in terms of, go ahead.
Yeah, for us, we're actually looking at the platform and saying, because we're a community, how do we create connections through those social platforms? But even deeper than that, we actually saw a white space. We saw a hole that was in the social media platform where you're one person on LinkedIn, you're one person on Facebook, and you're one person on Instagram. And there's not really any platform that's really talking about you as a person, both, and you as your career. On LinkedIn, it says, okay, I went to college at so-and-so, I work at Digitas, or I work at Girl Boss, but you're totally someone else on Instagram. And so how can you be authentic, and how can you really understand yourself? So we saw a white space, and we are actually launching Girl Boss Collective, which we already have a 25,000 person wait list on. And we are creating a community, a digital community at that, where it's allowing women to connect with each other through careers, but also being themselves. So it's merging the gap between a LinkedIn and an Instagram.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any channels where you guys are like, we're staying away for now because it doesn't feel right or because of the brand safety sort of elements or anything like that? Or are you still open to all platforms?
Yeah, not for us. I mean, there are certain platforms we lean more heavily into because we've seen more success and we've seen more engagement. Like Facebook and Instagram are real big for us. But we're not, especially when we talk about like branded content, for sure, if we have a brand partner that wants us to focus on Twitter, well, we're going to focus on Twitter. So, so yeah, that's the way I would answer that one.
Yeah, same for Girl Boss. It's really figuring out kind of where we have the highest engagement. Instagram stories is where she's at. Twitter, actually LinkedIn as well, are great platforms for us. We aren't on Snapchat, and that's merely because our engagement is on other social platforms.
Got it. Crystal ball, where's social media in 5 or 10 years? Is it like eviscerated? Is it bigger than it was? Like what, because I mean, for the first time in 10 years, there's a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
So I'd love to get your guys' perspective. We won't hold you to it, although they're recording this. So.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not nearly smart enough to really be able to speak on this subject, but I mean, Katie, what you described is, to me, the future of it. It's understanding that there's different communities of people, some bigger than others, and I think social media's job is to sort of serve those communities. So I think maybe what we'll see is sort of a diversification, maybe smaller niche social platforms like, Girl Bosses, and maybe there'll be other ones for other small niche, communities as well.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think, there's a shift that's happening where there's such massive scale and there's so many conversations that are happening that are unfiltered perhaps, or in some ways takes a whole new meaning on. And so I think the future is really going back to basics, which is about the human connection and the community, and that could be the emergence of niche social platforms. But it's all going to be back about going to the community with a purpose. And I think that's where Girl Boss is seeing ourselves in 5 to 10 years, is really capitalizing on that and being a service and a community. But I would completely agree with Jason.
Got it. Okay, lightning round time. I tipped you off with these questions, so. Katie has an advantage because there's a lot of Boston questions. How many, this is one's really going to hurt for you. Sorry, we're going to twist the knife. How many World Series titles do the Red Sox have in the past 11 years?
3.
4. Isn't it?
3.
It is 3? All right,
2007, 2014?
4, yeah.
No.
2004 is the first. So
Right.
Yeah, but that's more than 11 years, right?
Yeah.
All right, that was a bad question. I was not a math major, that's for sure. All right, best clam chowder in Boston.
I mean, like, listen, I'm not going to be good at most of these questions. I do like clam chowder, but I mean, like, my answer is just going to be like legal seafoods, and everyone's going to roll their eyes. But listen, it's good clam chowder.
Yeah, it's
It
fine.
is.
Yeah, you
It's
throw
good.
some of
That
those
was
oyster
solid
crackers
answer.
in there. Oh, was that yours?
Yeah.
Oh.
Legal.
That's
I'm
good.
sorry to do that.
No, that's great. We agree.
Okay, good.
There.
I feel like that was fixed. You guys met and had coffee before
We
this.
did not talk about that one.
We actually
most-
had clam chowder.
Most overrated tourist attraction.
You should go first. Mine's going to be unpopular.
The Cheers bar.
Yeah, I agree. Awful.
Yeah.
If anybody likes it, sorry.
Sorry.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
You go in and you're so disappointed.
Yeah, it's not Cheers.
Yeah, it's not.
I mean, like,
You're going to say Fenway Park.
I was gonna, but now I realize, like, this is like, so I'll just say, like, you know what one I think is it's not really an attraction, I guess, but those duck boats. I feel like every time I see them, they're just in traffic. Like, I don't understand how that's fun. You're going on vacation
you go on
just
the
to sit
water,
in traffic.
it's-
I heard that you do that, but
Yeah.
like most of the time, it's just people sitting on a boat and
Yeah.
stuck in traffic. So
All right, that's fine.
never done it myself. It just doesn't look like
The hate
fun.
factor is rising towards you.
Sorry. There's
What's,
no win. There's
what's
no way I
the
can answer
best
that.
Boston-themed movie of all time?
Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting.
It's a good one. I mean, I like The Town.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's kind of like under the radar a little bit, but every time
That's a
it's
good
on,
one.
I'll watch it. So
That filmed in Charlestown, where I live, and my wife and I were going for a walk out to dinner. And we walked by the monument. As we walked by, they were setting up the set. Nobody was there, and a guy who looked like Ben Affleck, who was Ben Affleck, happened to be there. And my wife, who like you'd think would be like, hi, because he was very friendly, and there was nobody there, like completely froze and just like walked by him like this. We walked by, and we walked to the end of the street, and I said, do you want to turn around and walk again? She's like, yes. So we walked back by. She still didn't say anything to him, and then we left.
Nothing creepy about that.
That was really creepy. All right, so this one was controversial, sort of, I guess. We just couldn't figure it out, but I think you've nailed it at this point. Famous Boston area person who recently died.
You should take this one.
Let's give this to the crowd. Who is it?
Yeah.
Whitey Bulger, yes.
You guys knew.
Yeah, they knew it. All right. Questions? Anybody?
I'm curious if brands ever reach out to you guys about diversity, and if so, like what are your challenges, and like how do you make it interesting?
Yeah, you want me to go first?
Sure.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah, absolutely. It is a good question, and yeah, it happens all the time. All these brands, and Keith, you live and breathe it. Every brand has a specific person that they want to speak to, and a lot of times we have partners that want to speak to a specific group of people, whether that's moms or Hispanics or people that live in Northern California, whatever the case is. They have a specific person they want to reach, and they put that on us to make sure that we do that. The way that we try to do it is understand that audience or that target audience. Again, have those insights from our brand partners, and try to just select a actor or a talent that's going to get that point across or sort of mirror whatever it is that person wants. So it could be a celebrity, it could be a writer, but making sure that the people that we put together, the talent that we choose for that project, understand that specific audience.
I would, somewhat controversial, hopefully there's no brands, maybe they are here, but I think typically the bigger brands in particular are really bad at it in terms of, there's a brand that I work with that there's a rising Hispanic consumer, and it's not that they don't want to reach them, they don't know how. And part of it is because of who's staffed on the marketing side at the brand. Another part of it is they like to go their tried and true methods. So like to what I spoke about before in terms of like the 30-second TV commercial, it's also the networks that they're used to going on and those sorts of things. So I think even when they try, if I'm understanding your question correctly, even when they try to reach a more diverse audience, I think they have a really hard time doing it the right way. So I don't think it's a nut that's been cracked yet.
Yeah, and when we talk about qualifying certain partners at Girl Boss, like when we don't have a brand that will think and prioritize diversity, we will absolutely not work with them. And we think about that in all of our social channels, in our panels, in our conversations. We have to have diversity. We also, as a brand called Girl Boss, we know that there's a massive opportunity even for women that are underrepresented. So we absolutely we will turn away brands, and we will not work in certain aspects that do not prioritize diversity.
One other thing I'll say that we've committed to as an agency, and a lot of agencies have, is it Free the Bid? Yeah. Free the Bid, which is we are trying to make sure that female filmmakers in production, from a production standpoint, are getting the chance to be a part of that process. So we're making sure that when we're bidding those out, that there's an equal chance from a female standpoint that they're able to take part in that and be able to create content on behalf of the agency or brand. So that is something that we've done that I think has made a lot of headway in the industry.
That's a great question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, we got one there. We'll get you next.
For inclusion and empowerment, some of the things you're talking about, I know Title IX and some other legislation was a great level of the playing field for women, particularly empowerment and people, if you can see it, you can be it. Could you talk about either of your groups and how you've used sports marketing or how you plan to, and if that might be a bigger part of your future, because obviously there's such a merge of the entertainment industry via sports, particularly for the opportunity for women and minorities.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we see, to your point, we see a massive opportunity to give them a platform and a voice and to really celebrate these incredible women that are doing amazing things within this category. So you'll see in the upcoming Girl Boss Rally, which is actually in New York, November 17th and November 18th, that's a big focus for us. And actually that's a big focus for conversation, because I think to your point and what we've seen within the past few years, let alone the past few months, is that we do have a responsibility, and most importantly, there is incredible women doing amazing things that have a voice, that are using their voice in the best way possible within especially the sports marketing world. You look at Serena Williams, right? And you look at women that are doing incredible things and also starting their own brands as well. So there's a platform, and Girl Boss is going to be that platform for us to celebrate them.
Yeah. You know, I don't know if I'm going to answer your question directly as you asked it, but you know, we do a lot of stuff around sports, and we do a lot of stuff that supports women's rights. I can't think of a specific example where they've come together. That's not intentional. It just sometimes ideas work together and some don't. And I'm sure that our team wouldn't shy away from doing something in the sports world if there was a funny idea or a funny POV that they could bring to the table. But certainly, like, you know, using our platform and using comedy as a way to shine a light on some of the injustices and some of the, you know, unfairness that's happening is a really effective way of getting that word out in an entertaining way. We like to say that the comedy is sort of like the sugar to help the medicine go down, where nobody really wants to have fun talking about these things. It's not a comfortable conversation in a lot of ways, but you know, by us kind of making a joke about it, but just shining a light on sort of why it's so ridiculous that, you know, women are still getting less money in doing the same job. You know, being able to point those things out in a funny way has been a really effective tool for us.
Yeah. I think I only have time for, well, I don't know. Maybe we can do two more. I don't want to choose. Go ahead.
So just assume that there's a lot of content creators in here.
Yes.
Maybe some of us have content that we think is a good fit for Funny or Die, or a branded content for maybe one of your Digitas advertisers.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear from us, and if so, how?
Yeah, we're looking to meet with new creators all the time. And so I would say the best thing to do is to reach out to me and my team. And we'll certainly take a meeting to have a conversation about it. We meet, I'd say 50% of my time is dedicated to meeting with people. So yeah, absolutely open to it.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked a little bit at the sort of the onset of my job is to connect brands with talent. Yep. And that talent could be Will Ferrell, I suppose, but it doesn't necessarily need to be A-list celebrities. It could be anybody, right? So anybody that has a good idea, presumably is pretty talented, right? So, so the answer is yes, but we do have a programming team whose job it is to find talent and to tap them for editorial ideas and even branded projects. So, so yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry. Oh, you have a microphone. We'll get you next, okay?
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, wow, check that out. With Funny or Die being very popular on you know, YouTube and such like that, have you had to make any sort of adjustments with brands or anything in regards to the content creators with YouTube's pay scale? Like, I mean, like I know I was helping out Cyanide and Happiness for a while, and then they had to kind of dial things back because of YouTube's paying and stuff like that. Like with brands, I mean, do you, not to say steer them away from YouTube, but has that affected you guys at all?
Not really. For us, I mean, YouTube is a very valuable distribution platform. We talked about audiences and, you know, reaching them where they want to be reached, and YouTube is a place, if you're going to make digital video content, it's kind of hard not to be on the biggest platform, right? So, so we certainly don't steer people away, particularly if a brand partner has a YouTube strategy. I'm not going to try to change their strategy. That's not my position. That's not my job. I will say that, you know, YouTube is less of a focus for us than some of the other platforms, and that's just based on performance. We find that the stuff that we make that has the most success generates more of a conversation. It's more shareable, and we're just finding that those types of engagement metrics are happening more on other platforms, but we're not advising clients and partners to stay away from YouTube for any economic benefit to us, if that answers your question.
She's been trying to ask a question for a while. I think we got to wrap after this. Sorry, guys.
Okay,
because there's
thanks.
another panel.
I just wondered with Girl Boss, do you ever team up with other organizations like, say, Essence has their big event in New Orleans? Have you ever teamed up so that you were having events coordinated with them or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually something we've been talking a lot internally about. We've had such massive success with our 2 rallies. We've had 1,900 women attend, over women from 19 different countries, 230 different cities, 36 different states. And so the way we think about expanding it is working potentially with like-minded partners that are doing, incredible experiential activations rooted in content, rooted in community. So it's definitely something that is on our radar and that we're definitely exploring.
All right, I know there were a couple more questions. Sorry, there's another panel that's coming in, so we got to wrap. I want to say thank you to you guys for coming and joining us on Saturday, and thanks to Katie and Jason for representing two great brands and coming up from New York. Thank you.